You're not ready.
We're gonna be counting down.
You think you're ready.
You still got a little time to go get a drink. Go to the fridge.
You're not ready.
Maybe you have some leftover bacon and eggs.
You think you're ready.
Make yourself a sandwich.
We're counting down to a world unknown.
If you like coffee, that's good.
You're not ready.
Put some cream in it.
World unknown.
Or just drink it black.
You're not ready. We're counting down.
You put a little sugar in there, that'll make it a little sweeter. Some people go with vanilla.
You're not ready.
Some people like that hazelnut flavor.
You're not.
Maybe you got some of those little stirring straws at home.
Ready. We're counting down to a world unknown. If you think you're ready.
Whatever it is you need to get, you still got a little time. 3 minutes. Under 3 minutes. So you got time.
You're not ready.
Why don't you grab a pen, maybe some paper, write down some questions maybe that you want to ask, or a good funny joke that you heard from a friend of yours or something like that. I don't know, maybe you got some hot gambling tips or some goss.
We're counting down to a world unknown.
How's that sandwich coming? Did you make it? I might make one.
A world unknown.
You can do all kinds of stuff on a sandwich. Sprouts, turkey, cheese, mayo, mustard. Wheat bread's good.
If you think you're ready, ooh, you're not ready. We're counting down, down.
Dijon.
If you think you're ready, ooh, you're not ready.
Pickled onions.
World unknown. You're not ready.
Under 2 minutes now.
Ooh, you're not ready. We're counting down to a world unknown.
Not enough time to make popcorn.
You're not ready.
Typically takes about 2:35. Put it in the microwave. Don't use the popcorn button though.
You're not ready.
You really want to time it out, you gotta listen for the pops.
If you think you're ready.
When the pops go between 1 to 2 seconds.
We're counting down to a world unknown. If you think you're ready.
I think that's when you want to pull the popcorn out.
We're counting down to a world unknown.
Yeah, coffee, popcorn, sandwich, pizza, whatever it is that you would like to drink, eat, whatever it is. Go grab it now. We're under 1 minute now, so you need to get in there. You need to go get whatever it is that you want. Put it in your belly or get it in front of you. All right? Grab that pen and paper.
You're not ready.
And don't forget your questions. Jokes.
You're not ready. We're counting down to a world unknown.
All right, we're running out of time. Seriously, go get your stuff.
You're not ready. We're counting down to a world unknown.
All right, last call. Hit the fridge.
You're not ready. We're counting down to a world unknown.
Okay, we're running out of time now.
If you think you're ready, ooh, you're not ready. We're counting down to a world unknown.
Oh, it's getting real.
If you think you're ready, ooh, you're not ready.
What's happening?
We're counting down to a world unknown.
All right. It is time for a super soaker. I'm not very good at this. Jason usually runs this for us. I can't even play the intro. I'm not sure how to get that Michael comment off the screen, but
I think I know how to do it. I'll try it, Ben.
There we go. Boom.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how to play the intro. Let's just get right into it. And this is an emergency live stream for us, the Ben and Skin Show, to discuss the Luka Doncic trade. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Hopefully you find this to be therapeutic. Hopefully it's cathartic for us. Hopefully it's informational. You know, I think Skin, your big basketball brain is important in times like these. I'm going to be super hyper emotional because that's what I do. I have a feeling that you will be on point and factual, and you'll have a really good perspective on all this. But I know that our listeners are hurting. I know that this is traumatic. And if you think about our origin, really our start was the Mavs postgame show in large part, or even Basketball Jones a million years ago. Basketball, you and I met playing basketball at Huff Hines Recreation Center in 1982. Lifetime Mavs fans, went on the whole Dirk voyage. I was trying to weigh this without being hyperbolic. I'm like, this is one of the worst moments in my career as a fan of sports. Like, this is one of the most hurtful things I've ever seen happen. I was trading Luka away at 25 years old as I was thinking, is this the worst moment like I've experienced as a fan? Is this, so there's a lot to it, but it's complicated. There's way more layers to it than just the emotion of it. So I want to have this emergency live stream, and yes, I'm going to pour out my emotions. Some of it will be irrational, and I know you're emotional about this too, but then I need you to help me put my basketball world back together with the actual facts and what has happened and why it happened.
Yeah, if you go and you look at, I always try to look at social media reaction through, in a very guarded fashion. But even if you just go and look at national reaction to this, I watch a lot of NBA TV, or if you flip over to ESPN or whatever, there's reaction to this nationally. There's fan reaction, there's media reaction, there's reaction within the league. I watched a little bit of Zach Lowe last night, who's not currently covering the NBA because ESPN let him go, but he's super plugged in, and like he would tweet what NBA executives told him, right? So there's a lot of different lenses to look through this, but I think for us, where you start is the intense emotion of the loss of Luka, right? Like, so much of whatever whenever your mental health is poor is generally tied to loss of a loved one, loss of a job. We are so, as a fandom here in Dallas, so connected to Luka Doncic. We are going through loss, and that's painful. And I think like the nature with which it went down, we had to deal with shock first. Like, this didn't happen, right? And it's
how'd you find out?
What's that?
How'd you find out?
So I found out because I got simultaneously a text from two people. One of them was Ben Rogers, and those texts were, "Is this real?" Now, I want to set this up super quick. So as you know, my nephew is a filmmaker, and he has a new TV series called Hal and Harper, and it was premiering at Sundance Film Festival in Utah. And obviously we're too busy, so I wasn't able to go there and watch it. But the Sundance Film Festival website allowed you to stream all 8 episodes of his series. However, once you streamed it, you had a 12-hour window to watch 4.5 hours of content. You with me? You have to binge watch it. I had to do the Mavs game yesterday, pre and post duty with Harp for the Cleveland game. Harp did an amazing job, by the way. So I'm looking at what I have to do. It's a Saturday night. Me and my wife get in bed at 10:30, and we're committed to watching 4.5 hours, which means we're going to go to bed at 3 a.m. And we know this. But then I know I can get up early, drink my coffee, get ready, and be at pre and post game duty at 12:45 to do my job. At like 10:45, we just started streaming it. Okay. And I want you to know this, about 15 minutes in the Cooper's series, there's a joke about a person getting ready to move to Dallas. And if I remember the line correctly, the joke is, well, at least you get to move to Dallas and watch that white boy you love, Luka Doncic. That's a fucking movie, dude. And then I look down at my phone and I see your text and a text from another friend. I'm like, wait, what? Hold on, honey. I pause it and then spend the next hour dealing with text messages and reading and trying to figure out if it happened or not, because it was so effing surreal and hard to believe. How did you find out about it?
My son Miles, my 17-year-old, came downstairs And he was like, Dad, the Mavs just traded Luka. And I was like, what, dude? No, they didn't. And he goes, it was a Shams tweet, I think. And I was like, dude, it's a fake account. And he goes, it's his real account. I confirmed it. And Shams is saying this is real. That's how shocking the trade is, that most of the world said, no, this is not real, because no, the Mavericks would never do that. You would never trade a 25-year-old first-team NBA player every single year who hasn't even reached his prime yet, whose prime years are ahead of him.
Right.
For a 30 guy that's going to be 32 in the playoffs, there's a 6-year age difference, really, because Luka's about to be 26, but no one would ever do that. So no, that didn't happen. And I want to talk about the emotion of it first.
Okay.
When you land a sports unicorn, whether it's a franchise quarterback, whether it's Shohei Ohtani, whatever, if it's a guy who's like iconic, and a guy that is going to go down as one of the greats ever, you don't trade that player. You build statues for that player. You do everything you can to get them to stay, and you build a dynasty around them. You don't trade that. And if that, my first thought was, oh my God, Luka must have demanded a trade. Right. And then I reached out to a source, and they were like, no, Luka was blindsided. They just had to wake him up and tell him he didn't know this was even a possibility. I'm like, okay, so he didn't. So they wanted this, and obviously his supermax contract is looming, which is almost $350 million, right? Almost $70 million per year for 5 years.
It'll be the largest contract in NBA history, and that's the way it goes, because the way the salary cap worked. Jaylen Brown had the largest. It's like, kind of like we talk about quarterbacks in the NFL, next man up. Luka, deserving of the supermax, obviously was going to sign the richest contract in NBA history.
So him getting traded, that's a wake-up call where they're like, hey, you just lost $100 million. That had to be so tough.
Right.
But it comes down to, okay, that contract looming. Nico has said in the press conference, and he said in comments that, hey, they wanted to get out ahead of that. And I they were worried that he could sign that deal and choose to opt out, or he could say, hey, I don't want to sign the Supermax. I'm going to go choose what team I go to. I mean, it sounded like that was a possibility. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if the Mavericks aren't keeping their franchise player, their Dirk, their Bird, their Magic, their Kobe, their LeBron, their Shaq, their Giannis, their Shea, whatever, they're not keeping their franchise guy, then they don't believe he's worth that Supermax. And so that's when you get into, you're like, okay, they know him better than anyone. We know the lifestyle stuff, the conditioning stuff. We know that there's been injuries. Are they looking at this saying, hey, if his lifestyle doesn't change, then those injuries are going to be more frequent. And we just don't feel comfortable with that investment in that player if he's not going to change his lifestyle. And I'm like, okay, I get that, but even not in the best shape ever, even on one leg at 25, he just carried you to the finals. So can't you fix that other stuff? Like, is that unfixable? Like, and so I don't understand why that got taken away from us as fans, because when, as a fan, you're not promised that in your lifetime. Like we got Dirk. We had great players throughout the years, but we had Dirk. We had 21 years of Dirk, one of the greatest players ever. And he got us a ring along the way. That is so unbelievably special, to have that baton passed to another one who might ultimately be even better. A guy who averaged 34 points a game, a guy who's averages 30-point triple-doubles in the playoffs. Like, no matter what, as a fan, I felt like for the next decade from now, we're in good hands. We're going to enjoy watching basketball, which was one of my favorite things to do in the world. That was taken away, and it was taken away in exchange for a tighter window. And like, Anthony Davis is a great player, but now the window we're talking about is 2 to 3 years, not the next decade. Like, what?
Yeah, and I think even best case scenario, idealizing it, it's a 5-year window, best case scenario, right? That's if Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving age really, really well. borderline LeBron well. Traditionally, bigs can play longer at a high level. But Anthony Davis is a unique big in that regard, and he's had his share of injury problems. So I think that's a really fair assessment. I also think, there's a lot of things that we're going to say, or I'm going to say during this live stream, that these are my opinions based on what I think I know. And I'm also going to be, I'm going to try to be careful here to present what I think is the Maverick side. And keep in mind, that's not necessarily my opinion. If I say I think they're doing this, this, and this, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm trying to analyze what's happened and why it's happened. I'm like you and everybody else in that I've had these over the course of the last 36 hours now, or whatever it is. I've had some really, really low moments, and now I'm going to do the "Hey, look at me, I'm special" thing. I was the very first guy in Dallas that got to have a sit down interview with Luka. Like, that mattered to me. I was thinking about that time that I went up. I had post game duty, and we were playing the Knicks, and I thought they had lost, and I got released from my broadcast position to run up to the platinum level to go start the post game. And by the time I got up there, I had to sprint down full speed back to my broadcast position because Luka was doing something that was so effing phenomenal. No one could believe it, with that magical play to send it into overtime off of his own missed free throw against the Knicks. So then I could interview him after that. Right. And then you and I are so effing lucky that we've been close to Dirk's people, which then was a segue for us to be close to Luka's people. And so we've got to be around Luka and Dirk in some really special moments. Like, dude, you and I got to go to Dirk's Hall of Fame party. Why are we so effing lucky, right? So we are personally attached to the people that are our sports heroes. But then at the same time, when you work in sports, you know that there's harsh realities and things that change. And no matter what or how I feel about Luka, I'm going to call the Houston Rockets Mavericks game on Saturday in the American Airlines Center. The games are going to continue to happen, and hopefully I'll continue working, and I love that job. Hopefully I'll continue to do it. So there's two different ways in which I have to process this. But man, I'm just like everyone watching. I'm just like every Maverick fan. I mean, there's been some really, low moments over the next 36 hours. But one thing that I'm telling you, I feel with 100% certainty that, because I'm getting asked this by people that I love, people that I think are very smart, I do not think this is personal. I do not think Nico Harrison has made a personal decision. I do not think he operates in that way at all. I think he is a very structured, measured, coming from corporate life person. Okay. And so I don't think he made some decision of, oh, I'll show you, or anything like that. I don't think this is a conspiracy that has anything to do with moving the team to Vegas or trying to manipulate gambling laws in Texas. I've seen a lot of that. I can assure you, the Mavericks have a 7-year lease at the American Airlines Center. And they, from what I've been told, have every intention of being there for 7 years. Do you know how many laws can change over the course of 7 years? So I'm just saying all that to say that the emotional, I'm mad, I'm angry, this guy sucks, I'm going to slander this guy. I get it. We all feel that because a sports franchise asks you to emotionally invest in your players and your team. They ask you to do that. They ask you to be a fan, but then they go, hey man, this is a business. It's hard. Like, it's very difficult, but I want to say all that and get it out because I think the decision that Nico made, he based it on what he thinks is best for the franchise, not best for Luka. And I also think that he knows this world inside out, and he knows that if he's wrong, he will be removed. He knows that. He knows the structure. He knows the game. This is the decision that he made. He will be right or he will be wrong. But we have, as fans, we have that emotional thing that we have to deal with. And if you're, canceling your tickets or your subscription or burning jerseys or whatever, you have every right to do that. And I think that if a team asks you to emotionally invest in their product, they can't get mad when fans react like fans. And I believe all of that wholeheartedly, and everything that you're feeling and that I'm feeling, that I'm trying to also measure with, dude, I got a job to do and I'm going to go do it. And I also have been following this league for a long time, and I feel like I know how these things go, but I'm still, there's things that about this that really hurt me, but I got to get over it. And I got to turn the page because I'm here. I work for the Dallas Mavericks. I'm a fan of the Mavericks, and I will continue to be that.
Man, I just you and I love the game of basketball. I loved watching Mark Aguirre. God, I loved the 3J. I mean, I've suffered through so many bad teams.
Right.
To have a guy who was like, oh, we got the Kobe, we got the Jordan. We've got that. We've got one of the all-time greats. It's this comforting blanket that no matter what, like, you're going to have a better decade than your friends who are following their teams. Like, we got the guy, like, we got one of those. It's just so rare that I'm like, okay, let's just go down this road and say, okay, if you decided, oh my God, his lifestyle, he's overweight, he's not conditioned, he's going to get hurt more often, oh my God, he's drinking a beer in a hallway, whatever. Like, if those things are so concerning to you that you decide, okay, we do not feel comfortable paying him $350 million, then you open it up to the league and you're like, hey, what is going to put our franchise in the best position moving forward? What's going to keep this window open the longest? Because that's what we care about as fans. How long are we going to be a legit contender? And so if you told me they traded him for 5 unprotected first-round picks and 2 role players, or whatever the max you can do, I would be like, okay, they got the biggest return in history, because nobody trades a global icon, top 5 player in the league at 25 years old without getting an enormous return that makes you go, oh, okay, that sucks, but yeah, they're set forever. This is not that. This is, no, we want to win this year or next year, and we think this gives us a better chance to do that. And it's like, well, what about the 8 years after that? Like, wait, what? How did you not get all the picks from the Gobert deal? How did you not get the Mikal Bridges? Like, how is, like, I look at the future of the Mavericks after this tiny window that just got shortened on us like crazy. And I'm like, okay, so when they've got an old team now, when these old guys retire, how do you rebuild it? You don't have the assets to do it. And I'm like, do you even have all your picks for when you're done? Like, I don't,
Okay, well, let's address all that. Let's address all that, because, you're stating your opinion, and it is your opinion.
Yes.
Like, every fan has their opinion. I have my opinion, and I'll try to present what I think Nico believes, but speaking on behalf of another person is wrong, because I haven't had conversations with Nico about this, or this. I'm making an assessment based on what they've done and then what I think I know about the league. Okay. The Oklahoma City Thunder, if you go back, I don't know, 8 years, Ben, they had James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Russell Westbrook. Okay. The Mavericks beat that team to win an NBA Finals in 2011. So, wow, that was 13 years ago that they had those guys. And then they went to the finals the next year. Okay. The Oklahoma City Thunder never returned to the finals again. And then systematically, they started having to, for various reasons, trade those 3 future Hall of Famers. Okay. First Harden, then Kevin Durant, F them. And that escalated everything, which, I mean, hell, that's how we got Harrison Barnes, was out of that chaos. And then eventually Russell Westbrook. Remember, they got Paul George and traded Paul George in the middle of the night to the Clippers, which was the last shocking thing that happened in the NBA. So that's a long window right there of, not window, that's a long storyline to where they are now, where through all those moves over the course of 13 years, the Oklahoma City Thunder have put themselves in a position to dominate the NBA over the course of the next decade in a way where no one else can touch them. They just did a poll of every sporting front office. They interviewed the front office people in other sports, and the Oklahoma City Thunder won best front office in sports. They've put together currently one of the top 3 teams in the NBA currently. All those guys are babies. None of them are veterans, and they're sitting on about 13 first-round picks. So what I'm saying is we can talk about our window. Every team in the NBA is talking about their window versus what the Oklahoma City Thunder have. Then conversely, last night, the San Antonio Spurs just added De'Aaron Fox to the greatest prospect in the history of the NBA, and he's 20 years old. So that window of when the Spurs are going to be unbeatable just did this, okay? So when you're talking about your window, you have to place that window up against what these 2 teams in your conference have put together. So I think, this is my opinion, the Mavericks front office looked at the NBA landscape and they said, whether we have Luka or not, we better win this thing in the next 3 years, because barring injury, there's no way we can catch what those 2 teams have done. San Antonio was blessed by the gods. There's nothing you can do to have Wembanyama land in your lap, right?
That's how I feel about Luka.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's fair. Hold on. I'm getting there. And I agree with you. That's what makes this so difficult, and especially it was handing Dirk. You had Dirk, and Dirk handed it off to Luka, right? And that's like, how did we get so lucky? How did we get so blessed? But if you look at what the team has, I think, again, this is my opinion of what I think the Mavericks think. I think they thought they had to win this thing in the next 3 to 4 years. They had to win this thing. And their assessment is that the best way that we could win this thing in the next 3 to 4 years is, and this is why they didn't, quote unquote, Ben, open it up, because they're not just simply trying to get rid of Luka. They're not rebuilding. We can argue all day that did they deserve more, but this front office, and primarily Nico, I can tell you firsthand, I do know a few things. They love Anthony Davis. They think Anthony Davis is probably as good as everybody that we're talking about. They believe in him. And so they have made the decision to try to get a championship in the next 3 years, and they believe adding Anthony Davis to Kyrie Irving and the rest of the guys they have is the best way to do it. We can debate whether or not they're right or whatever. Time will tell. And that was one of the things that Harp said yesterday on the pre- and post-game show that I totally agree with. Man, I was so scared when they traded for Kyrie Irving because I didn't know him and I hadn't been around him. I'd seen him play. I knew he was an incredible player, but I was terrified of acquiring a guy that had been in the headlines for negative things and missed that many games. And, man, my fears were unsubstantiated because he's been amazing. And so what I would say is, I'm hurt emotionally because I love Luka, and he brought so much joy to me watching basketball. He played with joy. He gave me exhilarating moments. It's called Luka Magic for a reason, and magic is unquantifiable. It's special. It exists in this magical place, and we connect with it. But I will also say this. Show me where so far Nico has been wrong, and this might be the one where he is, and it's the one that tears everything down. But like me and Harp were talking yesterday, like I wouldn't have traded Luka Doncic if I was in charge. But I also kind of like go, all right, let's see if this guy was right, because he's been right on the last 4 things he's done.
Dude.
And we went from a team 2 years ago whose third best player was Dorian Finney-Smith to a team that went to the finals last year. So I don't know, man. Let's see how this thing goes.
Bro, that's a rational take, and it's fair. And his resume to this point, the deals he's made, he's got the dice at the table. He's red hot, man. He there's no question. But this is like, wait, what? You called one guy, went after one player? I get Love and AD. This is 13th season. How many? The odometer's about to roll over. Like we're not. Like he is at the end of his prime. Like maybe 1 or 2 more years in his prime. Luka is not yet in his prime window.
I agree.
And so the trade does not make sense to me on equal return back the other way. They didn't get enough for Luka. They just didn't. If they'd opened it up to the rest of the league, I get it. He loves AD. I mean, he's 32 in the playoffs. So okay, but that's fine. He loves that guy.
Yeah.
It didn't open it up, so they didn't get fair value. So if Mavs fans are wrestling with, you traded our global icon and didn't even get maximum return on the deal.
Right.
So it comes down to this. It is either the shrewdest, smartest, most savage, badass move ever,
Right.
or it's the worst trade in sports history.
I don't disagree, Ben. I don't disagree.
And so there's a trajectory here that we have to follow that it's not even going to be fair for Nico in this regard. Whatever trajectory Luka's career was about to be on with his fitness, with his commitment, with his lifestyle, that just changed. You would think you lose $100 million and you basically got traded because your weight. That's
Right.
embarrassing. And you know that he hears everything out there, so he's got to hear this. It could be a wake-up call for Luka to where Luka now goes and gets in shape, learns from LeBron, and is an absolute fucking Terminator that destroys the NBA for the next 15 years.
Yeah.
That could happen. That's not
Ben,
even...
I think that will happen.
Okay, but that's not... I don't know that would have happened had he stayed here.
Right.
Okay.
And let me just say, I don't think Nash would have been a 2-time MVP if he had stayed here.
Okay. So if that happens, that's going to be really hard for us to watch. And this motherfucker is about to drop 50, 20, and 20 against the Mavs every single time he plays them forever.
He's going to do it in a month. We're going to have to watch this in a month and a half or whatever.
Know how he's wired.
Yeah.
And so if there's lifestyle issues, which I hate this for this young player who I love, and I love his camp. It's almost like a character assassination. No one's doing it, but it's just the what you read into. You're like, wait, why didn't they want him? And so you're like, oh, is his lifestyle that bad? Is his diet that bad? Does he not care that much? Is there other problems here? I hate that for him. But if that's the case, and he never realizes his potential because he's just not that committed to being in the best possible condition he could be in, then Nico looks really smart. And here's the other thing. Right now, Nico is also taking all the weight for it. Oh, I didn't talk to a soul. Kyrie didn't know. J. Kidd didn't know. All these people didn't know. If behind the scenes, if all those other people were like, man, I love him and he's so good, but he's just not in shape and he's going to get hurt all the time. And that style is holding us back and he's arguing with refs and it's helping us, but it's also hurting us. If within the organization, which we're not in, I'm not saying we're not in those locker rooms.
I'm not.
So I'm saying if they're having these top end meetings that are like, man, we can't keep doing this. It's not helping us and it's not getting better no matter how good he is, then that was a cold-blooded, shrewd, amazing trade, right? That you're like, damn, oh, okay. Okay, so that there's different ways to look at the trajectories. But it's the age thing is the hardest thing for me, and it's the lack of a return. Like you can't make this trade in 2K. In the video game, you try to make this trade and the game denies it. The game declines it and they say, no, this is an illegal trade. The Mavericks aren't getting fair return back. In the fucking video game.
Yeah. It's and again, all these things, I mean, I see a lot of comments over there and I think a lot of people are like, fuck you, Skin. Please understand, I'm not saying I agree or disagree. I'm trying to present what the logic is. You can, and you can say it's wrong, and I won't argue with you or debate you or any of that. Here's the other. I'm trying to help people understand why it happened, and you can, hate it or whatever. I'm not telling you how to feel, but here's the other thing. Have you been following the Jimmy Butler saga?
Yeah.
Did you see the De'Aaron Fox trade last night? De'Aaron Fox going to San Antonio.
What was the return?
They got Zach LaVine and 3 first-round picks, I believe. Okay. Now,
De'Aaron Fox is not Luka either. He's a good player, but he ain't Luka.
but again, that's apples to oranges because this was about, and there could be wildly wrong. The Mavericks think they have they think they now have the best team in the West this year. Okay, they believe that. We can disagree with them all we want. The people that are in charge thought that this would do it for them, and that's the move that they made. If you open this up to the league, and I believe this 1,000%, the Dallas Mavericks made this trade without anybody in Luka Doncic's camp knowing what was going on. If the Mavericks open it up, then they are now making a trade with Bill Duffy and whoever Bill Duffy decides Luka Doncic wants to go to. Is that a way for a team that has a belief to operate? Like, in other words, if you open it up, the second you open it up, it's a different world. You are now no longer controlling what you want to do with your team. It's up to the player's agent. That's what happened. De'Aaron Fox said, I'm going to San Antonio or you're effed. Okay, well, I guess we're going to make a trade with San Antonio. So, again, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, I'm just saying they made this move. I mean, I think it's very possible, Ben, that if the Lakers didn't want to do this or whatever, or Patrick Dumont said no, that they eventually do give Luka the Supermax. I think there's alternate plans here. I think that Nico said, all right, I'm not convinced. And I want to say this too. When we're talking about the conditioning and all that, you and I aren't privy to that. This is like we're going on, like the reporting, for example, that Tim McMahon put out there is what I'm basing this off of because I know Tim is plugged in. So if Tim says the Mavericks did not believe in his conditioning, and dude, I know people that were on the health staff that aren't here anymore, right? I know things. So if you believe that he's gonna not quote unquote age well, and that gives you pause on that Supermax contract, and you think there's going to be long-term issues, then you want to control the narrative and you want to get what you want in return, not what Bill Duffy and Luka's people decide that you're going to get. And so that's why they didn't shop it to the league. We can crap on them all they want and say, like, how would you feel, for example, if they had done this in secret and they got Giannis and a first-round pick?
I mean, to me, it's the window and it's the age of the players and what you're promised when you have a young phenom. It's like, if they got, Giannis and he was 27, 28, I'd feel better. It's just that the window just tightened up so much. And so let's just say that this, you got 2025, 2026, maybe 2027. And then what are the Mavs picks in 28, 29, 30, 31? That Luka pick's not going to – that LA pick you got is not going to be a favorable pick for you because you're going to be able to build a really good team around Luka because he's Luka.
Yeah, and let me go. And I was looking. I didn't do a deep dive last night into the Lakers' salary cap future, but I believe I think they're going to take a little bit of a step back. But I think in about a year and a half, not this season, not the end after next season. I think they're going to be in a position to make some real power moves. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to want to go play in LA with Luka Doncic.
Everybody's want to go play in LA with Luka Doncic, who they just got with a $100 million off coupon.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't understand.
There's only one thing here. And I saw this, our buddy, Brendan Time that we used to work with put this on Twitter of like, okay, well, even if they go win the championship in the next year or 2 years, I don't even know that I'm going to enjoy it as much because I'm invested in Luka Doncic.
100%. 100%. If the Mavs win the NBA championship this year, I still won't be happy with the deal. And call me crazy. I know that's ridiculous.
How can you be happy with the deal? And maybe you can't. And I think that's a fair opinion. Like we're so attached to Luka, there's nothing good that can ever happen that'll make us feel okay about it. That's fair. That's how you feel.
The way I would be happy with the deal causes me to go to a place that I don't even want in the world, because what it means is that Luka doesn't reach his potential. So now you're talking about a guy who even if Luka, let's say that Luka had been on LA the whole time and was never a Maverick.
Right.
I would be a huge Luka Doncic fan because I love basketball. I'm
Same here.
54. I still play pickup basketball. I love a point guard, a guy that handles the ball, that can control the fucking game like a chess match, who is big enough to take people in the post, or if you got a big on him, he's going to take you outside, hit a three over you. The most amazing passer, skilled ball handler. Like it's like if you made him in a lab. He's like perfect if you made this guy in a lab. Now, obviously, he has flaws in his game, his fitness, his conditioning, arguing with the refs. I get it. All that's bad.
Back on defense.
Not getting back on defense. I get that. And so, honestly, there's nothing that can happen with this unless the Mavericks went out and won 2 championships in the next 3 years. And I'm like, okay. And Luka didn't do well. And Luka's spun off the rails. He never got in shape, and he just never met his full potential. That's just hard for me to even think about, because I want him to go be successful. I hope this is a wake-up call for him if those issues are real. To me, it comes down to really, what did the guys in that building think? What did his teammates really think? And if Kyrie didn't know about this, and I'm not saying he did or didn't, I'm just kind of walking through it.
Sure.
But if Kyrie didn't know about this, and now you get into the offseason and it's like, then he could be like, I want out.
Right.
I want out. Like, right. I want out.
Absolutely,
If Kyrie,
dude. He will. So he has a player option for next year. And before any of this trade happened, everyone was talking about the fact he's going to opt out because he's, quote unquote, earned more money.
right.
And he will get that money. And so he may be so offended by this that he's like, nah, I want to play with Luka. Screw this. Hell, I'm going to go see if I can be a Laker. Like, I think all that is open for conversation.
Man, you know what the heat that that John Daniels went through with a public war with Nolan Ryan.
Right.
This is that times 10. And I felt so bad for John Daniels, because it wasn't fair. You know, there was emotion and things involved, and Nolan Ryan was an absolute icon, and there's this power struggle, and JD took the high road, and he's like, I'm not going to win this. Like, the only way I win is not by talking to the media or airing our dirty laundry. It's if we go win. And that's what I heard Nico say. If we win, people will understand this, and that's all that matters. And I'm like, okay, he's right. And so, again, it's no small potatoes, man. It's either, okay, the whole organization was terrified of Luka, him having his own training people, the supermax of his conditioning, of his not getting back on defense, arguing about calls. That if they felt like if inside the most important people that weren't even supposed to be privy to this, if it was Jay Kidd, if it was Kai, if it was all these guys were like, yeah, man, this sucks, but this is better for us. If they all felt that way, then it makes a lot more sense to me. If it was one guy who just had the power and autonomy to do this on his own, and he loves AD, and didn't get a full return, in my opinion, and didn't shop it to the league, that's a crisis. And so it's like one or the other. And I'm wrestling all that through the emotion of losing a player that I just love.
I agree with you on all of that. And, you know, I think whatever people's emotional reaction to this is valid, because we were so invested in this person. And I think a lot of people will continue to be invested in this person. Like, even though we hate the Lakers as longtime Maverick fans, we're always going to root for Luka. And I think there will be people that will root for Luka when he plays for the Mavs, because don't you remember hearing this during the Dirk years? Hey, man, if Dirk had to leave to go into championship, I just would have rooted for Dirk wherever he went.
Yeah.
And I think that that's valid, because the one thing about Luka, that when you're evaluating a player, right, you evaluate a lot of different things. and you can easily evaluate quickness and jumping ability, size, strength, shooting percentages, defensive efficiency numbers. There's a lot of different things that you can look at to evaluate a player. One thing that's like very difficult to articulate is, man, that guy has the basketball force running through his veins, and he's just more special than everybody else. And that is Luka Doncic. He absolutely was special, is special in every way. And that's why he can play being a little out of shape and being hurt and still drag a team to the finals, because he's that special. I will never forget. I don't go on a lot of road trips, but I was on the road trip when Jalen Brunson made that pass to Luka in the corner, and he hit that falling out of bounds 3-pointer at Portland to send it into overtime. I actually think that was the first time Followell ever said Luka Magic on the air.
Right.
Could be wrong about that. I was in the building. All right.
Wow.
I remember that. It was so special. And you were sitting there going, how in the F did that baby player make that inbounds pass to that other baby player? And he made that shot. The Mavericks actually lost that game. But that was the beginning of, man, all the stuff they said about him in Europe is true. He really is otherworldly and has these unique senses. That I think about that pass that he threw, was it to Jaden Hardy from the corner to the other side of the floor? And I think in the background, you see players like, oh, like
Right.
he does things that his own peers can't comprehend.
That's why, like, that Atlanta game, going for 73.
Yeah.
Like, he makes a regular season meaningless game be something you remember for the rest of your life. And this feels like, hey, this is a good business decision. This will help us win a championship. And it's like,
Right.
wait, you traded Santa Claus.
Right.
Like that, you traded like an iconic globe. I guess here's where I am. I think I would rather contend with Luka for the next 10 years and not win a championship than win a championship without him. And that's irrational as fuck. I'm admitting it. I'm like, God, man.
I don't think it is, Ben. I really don't have a problem with that opinion, because the reason that we watch sports, most people watch sports, is because of the joy that it brings us. Okay. Also, some people can't watch it and they turn it off because of the pain that it brings you. A lot of people experience pain watching the Cowboys and have stopped watching them for that very same reason. That emotional engagement very much matters. And Luka has brought us tremendous joy, and that's why this is so hard to take. I will say this. I'm not defending Nico Harrison. I know I see a lot of comments. People are mad at me, and they think I'm whatever. I'm trying to analyze this. I'm not saying this is how you should feel. I'm trying to analyze what has happened, and this is what I believe has happened from a basketball standpoint. It is not Nico Harrison's job to make decisions based on emotion. All right. He is not wired that way. He has not been trained that way. It doesn't mean he's right or wrong. He can be wrong on all of this. And if he is, he will be fired. And do you know who knows that? Nico Harrison. He knows how these things work. He understands it. He believes he's doing the right decision to win. But back to your initial point, for a lot of people, it's about the attachment to the people that we pull for and that we see and that we feel connected with. And that is the very essence of Luka Magic. It's not ultimately about the win. It's about that experience in the moment of seeing something that you can't believe what you saw. And in a very short window, he gave us that time and time again, to where every time you watch him play, you think you're going to see something you haven't seen before.
Right.
And I think ultimately that's why there's so many people that are devastated right now, is because that's a very special thing that they've lost.
But in fairness to just trying to be balanced about all this, I'm sitting there watching ESPN and I'm seeing all these highlight packages of Luka.
Yeah.
He looks different every year. He gets bigger. He gets thicker every single year. And so, that's a reality of something that we've been tracking. And you look at LeBron, there's numbers out there, I can't remember what it is, of what LeBron spends to take care of his body per year. Right. I mean, he's like 1% body fat and he's 40. I remember Dirk bringing hot plates. We all do to the AAC because the food there was just not quite healthy enough. And, that commitment to your body as you get older gets more difficult. And so I'll put it to you like this. Let's just say in an alternate universe, this trade didn't happen in this hypothetical and they pay Luka the supermax and you move forward and Luka stays out of shape. He's not getting back on defense. He's arguing with refs, and you start getting less returns back. If that happens, you would look at the Mavs front office and go, dude, you guys were there. You knew what was going to happen. Why didn't you do anything about it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you might wish you had a time machine and you could go back and make the incredibly difficult decision to go ahead and trade Luka. And so if that is what would have happened, then this is a shrewd, ballsy move. But again, my personal standpoint, I'm not as in love with AD as everybody else just because of the age. Like if you're telling me you're going to go get 26, 25-year-old AD, okay. But, and that might even be a fair swap. Right. Maybe. It still might be lopsided. You know, if you trade them at the same age as two 25-year-olds, they probably would have to sweeten the deal. But it's the age, it's the odometer, it's the expedition of this clock that is so concerning for me, and it's taking away a decade of joy, telling me that we're going to get 3 years with some hired mercenary. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not attached to AD. I'm attached to Luka. And so
Same here, dude.
It just really comes down to, again, is this the shrewdest, most cold-blooded, savage, smart thing to do, to take on all this heat, to have the world think you're out of your mind, to have conspiracy theories, to people say it's the most lopsided trade ever, to have all of that. But if you have the inside scoop that this is the right move and you're willing to go down that road, that's epic. And so, time is.
I wouldn't have done that, Ben. I would have rather waited to see if Luka can conform to the way that I want him to conform, and primarily because he's 25. Like, they've tried to get him to do certain things, and he's tried to make concessions along the way, but he is who he is. But I also think that your growth is not stunted at 25, and I think he would have continued to evolve. But, man, I don't think that this decision was like some willy-nilly thing, but it doesn't mean I agree with it. I just think it's so difficult in sports to capture that lightning in a bottle thing that I would have hung on to the lightning in a bottle, and they were so lucky to get Luka in the first place because there was other people that made miscalculations about who he was going to be as a player because of his body type and quote-unquote lack of athleticism, whatever you want to say about all that. He's unbelievable. And I personally, if I was running things, I would have continued to try to work with him to get the desired result that I want, because I just think it's too hard to get a guy like that. And to your point that you've been underscoring the whole time, he's only 25 years old.
Okay, so when he comes back to the AAC, I hope he gets a standing ovation for the rest of his life.
Oh, he will. He absolutely will.
I hope he does. I hope it's so loud and so deafening. I hope Mavs fans cheer for him on every bucket he makes against them. You know, it's just like he's our guy. He's our guy forever. And, I just wish him the absolute best. I can't believe how he's got to be devastated right now. $100 million loss. He's, if he takes care of his body and he goes out and does what he's easily capable of doing, he'll make that money up in the long run. But this should send a loud message to him as a human being. This team did not think you were worth the risk because of your conditioning issues, because of your weight, because of your commitment to the game. They did not feel like you were a safe investment. That cost you $100 million. Are you prepared to adjust your lifestyle for that?
Dude, the NBA and specifically the Mavericks are about to get John Wick Luka. Like, if you think about what you have just unleashed onto the world, the Mavericks are responsible for that. They have now unleashed Luka. This is a guy who picks a random dumbass fat drunk fan in the stands and makes it personal with him for no reason. Hey, that fat guy right there said something negative. I'm going to do everything I can to make him pay. They have taken that and exploded it exponentially. They've taken money out of his pocket and told him they don't believe in him. And that is about to be unleashed onto the NBA. We're about to see something seismic. Now, let me ask you this. Do you even care enough, or not care enough, are you in a place mentally where you would like to talk about the basketball part of this?
Yes, I am. I mean, I'm not at all, but I want to. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I do want to ask you this: if OKC traded Shea, or if Tatum was traded, or any of these other, or even Jokic at his age, or Bird or Magic or Jordan or Dirk or any of those guys at that age, the Greek Freak, wouldn't you have gotten more than a 30 guy that's going to be 32, 13 seasons in the league, Christie?
Absolutely. I believe so. But, and please understand, man, I don't care if people are mad at me, because I wouldn't have traded Luka Doncic. This wasn't my decision. But if you're so emotional that you don't even want to hear ration, I can't help you. If you're that emotional of a person, you have every right to be that way. You're a fan, be that way. I get it. Man, I want you to see something. I posted on Twitter. I posted a video of my niece reacting to this because my family's invested. I'm invested. We're all invested. We all love Luka. He's brought us tremendous joy. But again, it's cool if you became a Maverick fan when Luka got here. I was a Maverick fan in 1981, yo. I was here before Dirk was. You mentioned the 90s. I'm willing to bet I watched as many games in the 90s when they were one of the 3 worst franchises in all of professional sports for the whole decade. I bet I watched more of those games than any of you motherfuckers.
So, dude, I've
90s, earned my Maverick stripes, okay?
Yes. In the 90s, I had to fight my apartment complex to carry the games because for some reason it was some out-of-state company or a different city that had the cable, or and I wanted
all to get a game that Bill Walton fucking called, okay?
Yeah.
So you're entitled to whatever you feel. I love Luka. I'll always love Luka. I love his people. I love him. He was so good to me personally. He treated me amazing, okay? But I'm going to be a Maverick fan. I've been a Maverick fan my entire life since the franchise got here. I grew up with them. So there's a game Tuesday night. I'm going to watch it. There's a game Thursday night. Me and Ben are going to watch it at our brewery, and we encourage everyone to come watch it with us. We're going to have this big 98-inch TV, and we're going to watch the game, but we're also going to talk to each other about how we feel about Luka, how we feel about this trade. We're going to have, how would you describe this, Ben? Like a big therapy session all together with the game going on in the background. We'll watch the game. We'll talk. We'll drink together. We're going to do all that together, me and you in person on Thursday at the brewery with the Celtics Mavs game on, correct?
Okay. Yeah. So Chris is asking, what's the brewery? Skin and I opened a brewery in Salina, Texas. It's called Roller Town. Some of the athletes we've covered over the course of our career invested in it. It's a really, really cool thing. We make awesome beer. And so we decided we're going to do this promotion for the Super Bowl where we're going to buy a 98-inch TV and watch the Super Bowl on it at Roller Town, and then put it back in the box and give it to somebody. So somebody's going to win that TV.
That's on Sunday.
And so Skin was like, dude, we could just have like, I don't know the way to put it. I'm thinking of it as a therapy session. Let's all get together and bond and talk and talk this through off the record, like just in the brewery, not broadcast anywhere. And so at Roller Town on Thursday night, we're going to have our buddy Larry Polsky pull that 98-inch TV out of the box, set it up for the Super Bowl. But we're also going to watch it's Mavs Celtics, right?
Mavs Celtics on TNT.
So
we're not broadcasting it.
So we're going to watch that game at Roller Town and just have a big old therapy session Thursday night. Then we're going to watch the Super Bowl on it, and somebody's going to win that TV on Sunday at Roller Town Beer Works.
You have to be there in person, and you have to be signed up for our Ben and Skin newsletter. We want one of our diehards to win it. Okay? But but what I'm saying about all that, if you want to come in person and tell me that I'm an asshole because I'm trying to explain what the basketball rationale is, even if I don't agree with it, come do it. Like I'm telling you, man, this has been so hard the last 36 hours for me. I had to go on the air yesterday and talk about the fucking Cleveland game where Kyler Kelly was starting at center because everyone was out. It was very difficult because deep down inside, I was, struggling with my own emotions about this. I thought the way that Followell started the broadcast yesterday, I don't know if anybody watched it. They may have been too emotionally hurt to watch it. I thought the way Followell started the broadcast yesterday was fucking chef's kiss, because he loves Luka Doncic. He's the one who came up with Luka Magic, dude. That's his. He came up with that, but he's got a job to do. We all have a job to do. Did you guys all quit your jobs because you're hurt over this? Like, you have to. Life is full of adversity. You can curl up in a ball, or you can wake up and keep going. I'm going to keep living my life. I'm going to have worse shit I've already had worse shit happen to me personally than Luka Doncic getting traded. It sucks, but you know what I did? I got up and got on with my life. So what I'm saying is, you're entitled to feel however you want to feel. It's okay. But I'm going to at least try to rationalize it and make sense of it. That's who I am as a person. Doesn't mean I agree with it. And I think that an interesting, we'll talk about basketball in a second. I think an interesting way to think about this, and you may feel one way now and then feel another way later. What if the Lakers never win a championship and the Mavericks win 2 in the next 4 years? Are you going to enjoy that?
Yes, that if that happens, but again, it comes down to, if the Lakers don't win a championship, but Luka goes down as one of the greatest players of all time still that never won a championship,
right?
That might be hard. Like, if he's but right now I'm too emotional to think about that.
Yeah.
But as a diehard career lifelong Mavs fan, if they're hoisting championships, that's what it's all about. Okay, so let's just do this. Let's just say, look, there's 2 paths this could be. This path is either one guy got control of the steering wheel and loved AD and just decided, I'm going to go get him. That's all I want to do. I'm a mad scientist. You can't stop me. Or the organization's like, man, a lot of people were worried about Luka, his conditioning, his future, that $350 million commitment, and then they had to make a decision. Okay, so it's what is it of those things? Time is going to tell. And again, Luka's arc may change a little bit, which may alter, this point in time. But let's just look at it rationally. I'm super excited to talk to you about the basketball aspect of it. I'm going to put my emotions aside ever so briefly. And let's just say that let's try to understand why, if you got yourself to the point that you decided you were going to trade Luka, walk me through the thought process of not shopping it everywhere, not trying to get picks for the future, and saying, this guy who's going to be 32 in the playoff starts, this is what we need.
Okay, I think there's 3 main reasons that all work together. This is not what I've been told. This is what I have assessed or deduced. Now, I have had certain conversations, but I think there's 3 main things. Number 1, the second that you shop Luka, Billy Duffy is making your trade for you. Okay? That's how this works. That's not a shot at anybody. I'm saying, do you follow the league? Luka Doncic picks where he wants to go, and then you have to decide, am I going to accept this or not? Now, usually what you get in those returns, last night, Charles Barkley was on NBA TV and he was like, I can't believe that an first-team All-NBA player was traded for a first-team All-NBA player. I've never fathomed that in my entire life. I don't understand that. Wow, I don't even know how to process this. This happened in the NBA. Charles Barkley, who's seen it all, I can't even understand this. And he said this. Usually when you trade a superstar, you get a bunch of trash and draft picks in return. Okay? That's what he said. Like, we can debate all that, but number 1, the second you shop him, Billy Duffy makes your trade for you. He has no allegiance to your organization. By the way, I love Billy Duffy. Love him. I've had some badass jazz music conversations with him. I love him. So that's number one. Number two, whether you agree with it or not, this general manager decided that Anthony Davis was the player he wanted for this franchise. He was talking about culture yesterday, and people like to read a lot into that. I think he's also talking about the culture of the style with which they want to play. And as he pointed out, he's the best two-way player in all of basketball. Whenever we talk about two-way players, we generally talk about guys that are, perimeter players that, like the way they used to talk about Klay Thompson when in his prime, right? He's saying, you're missing my point. He's the best two-way player in basketball. He affects the defensive end in a way that no other player does that's as good as he is offensively. Let me also say, because it takes us to my next point, we're a year away from the best two-way player in basketball being Victor Wembanyama, and it being that way for 15 to 20 years. Okay? So factor that in. The San Antonio timeline and the Oklahoma City timeline directly impact your timeline. All right? Whether you want it to or not. So if I trade Luka for, okay, everyone's saying that Sacramento got a better, deal for, or they're saying, but look at what you got for KD. All right. So you tell me, you got Mikal Bridges and you got like 6 first-round picks to be good when? How does that, when are you going to be good? You got 6 first-round picks and Mikal Bridges. Cool. When are you going to be good? And I don't mean like, when are you going to be championship good? Okay? When you trade a player like Luka, you do what Oklahoma City did, and you're bad for 12 years. Now, 12 years later, they're in a position to dominate for a decade, and they're directly affecting your window. So what this front office decided, whether you agree with it or not, is we better get one in the next 3 years, or it's going to be really hard, and I don't care how many first-round picks we have. So that's what they decided, whether you agree with it or not. So they got a guy in Anthony Davis who last year played 76 games. This year he's missed, I think, 7 out of 49, I think. And he is arguably playing the best basketball of his career. And this is the guy, if you remember, LeBron James handpicked to end the rest of his career with. He thought him and AD were going to go stack chips. They got 1. So whether you like the trade or not, the decision was our window is this. That's the guy I want. I don't want Billy, Duffy, and Luka deciding where he goes, because then it's out of my hands and suddenly I have Zach LaVine and 3 first-round picks. Agree or disagree, that's the playing field. That's what they decided. So now this is what they have. They have a 2-headed monster at center if Lively was healthy. They have Anthony Davis, who doesn't want to play center but can play center. They have PJ Washington Jr., who I think we've all fallen in love with, who will now play some 3. They have Kyrie Irving as their dynamic offensive weapon. They need another one, in my opinion. They have Klay Thompson, one of the best shooters of all time. And then off their bench, they have great role players in Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, Spencer Dinwiddie's a really good role player. They still have some youth in Omax and Jaden Hardy. And I'm not going to speculate on trades, but now that they've added Lakers first-round pick, and if you want to say they should have gotten 2, I agree with you. But they have all that. If they do want to make a move in the next 3 days, they can. And they are now geared to be a suffocating defensive basketball team. You will not score inside on the Dallas Mavericks.
Timeout. Let me get a 20-second timeout.
Sorry.
That was my first thing, is that I had not been tracking how AD was not enjoying playing the 5. He wanted to go back to his natural 4. And so my first thought was, wait, they traded for a center? We're like out of the deepest center rotation we've ever had. We have a 20-year-old center. Like, what? And so my brain has been conditioned to think about spacing in the new NBA. And so is that problematic for your offense if you have – I know it's good for your defense, but if you have AD and Gafford out there together, is that problematic for the spacing?
Okay, there's a couple different ways to look at this. And it's not apples to apples, right? We're just going to talk. The team that you played yesterday, they played Jared Allen and Evan Mobley together. They're also, I would argue, the best passing team in basketball that I've seen this year. And they have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. You know who's got far and away, well, Nico has the most pressure on him. Second most by a million miles. Jason Kidd, you're going to have to open up your playbook, homie. It's a little different now. You know, you're going to have to come up, you and your staff are going to have to come up with ways to make this work. You have enough scoring. Do you have enough shooting, and do you have enough spacing? That's a great question to ask. But I think that you can play. The Celtics play with Porzingis and they play with Horford, but both of those guys can shoot threes. The Cavaliers play with Allen and they play with Evan Mobley. Mobley's got pretty decent range. And I think the idea is that Anthony Davis can easily do for the Mavericks what Mobley does for Cleveland. But what the Mavericks do not have is they don't have Darius Garland to go with their Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, Clay is going to move back to the 2, I would think, and he can shoot the lights out. But there's going to have to be changes in their offense. And I think, quite frankly, Ben, we've seen changes in the last couple of weeks with some of the things that they're doing. You know, how many times, too, have we seen Gafford and Lively operate at the high circle and running actions off of that to pull bigs away and create some space? So their offense is going to change pretty dramatically. And depending on what they do in the next 3 days, may even change again. So I think defensively, I think they're pretty effing stout. I do wonder if they're going to be good enough with that big lineup of closing out on three-point shooters. I think that's a question. Their rotations, do they put the rotations properly together, and do those guys go out there and execute it? Bigger players like that. PJ is going to spend a little more time covering away from the basket. I think I don't have any problems with him doing that. It's a different DNA defensively, but it has the ability to be completely suffocating defensively. And also, let me tell you one more thing. Oklahoma City was trying to play with 2 bigs. Those guys just haven't stayed healthy, right? They wanted Hartenstein and Holmgren to play together. Holmgren's a pretty good three-point shooter, though. So those are the questions that have to be asked, but that is at least the mentality of what you have on paper and what you would try to do to make it work.
Okay, so with regard to what's next, like we've seen what the Mavericks offense is like without Luka. When Kyrie's there, it's significantly better. But when you ask too much of Dinwiddie, Dinwiddie is really good if you're not counting on him to run the whole offense. And he's had some huge games.
Right.
But there's a huge drop-off there, obviously. And so if you are straight up going for it now, you're not done. You got to go do something else. And Jimmy Butler is out there. I mean, he's 35. That kind of fits their window now. There's other guys out there that you've got to go get somebody else who can score. You've got to get somebody else who can run the offense. You just lost the quarterback of your whole team. You got to go get somebody else, I would think. So I would guess they're not done, right?
I don't know. I've juggled that in my head quite a bit. Also kind of based on what's out there or what's rumored to be out there. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they were done. I think they need another creator. I think they probably look at it. We're so used to watching, this version of the Mavericks with Luka and Kyrie, and it being, clearly like that's how you operate with the 2 creators. I think you can play this a little more traditionally, where it's just like, I think Spencer Dinwiddie is a solid backup creator. Like, I look at this as the way they're constructed. If nothing changes, I think it's very likely Clay is your starting 2 guard now. That's what I would suspect. And then I would say that that's not ideal for perimeter defense, but you're so good behind it, you're probably okay. They could also go a different route and start a Max Christie. He'd been starting some games for the Lakers, and he is a suffocating defender. Like, he's a really good defender. I think he's a 37% three-point shooter without shooting a high volume. So They may not have enough shooting if they're starting Max Christie at 2, but if they start him at 2 or even Najee Marshall at 2, my God, that's an awesome defensive team. I mean, it's an awesome defensive team, and that's going to be your calling card. And then you're going to be in a position where can you do enough with pick and roll stuff with Kyrie and Gafford or Lively, or pick and roll stuff with AD when you go a little bit smaller and have enough offense, depending on, hey man, Anthony Davis is a monster and Kyrie Irving is a monster, and we'll put enough shooting around them with PJ Washington and Clay and guys like that we're going to be fine offensively. But that's why I say there's so much pressure on Jason Kidd. He's got to change the way this team plays and change mid-season while we're talking about short windows, because that short window includes this season.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
you just reduced your window by 7 years, and it's now. Like, you have to go win right now. You just traded a global icon because you think it's short term. Hello, mid-season. You better get it together quickly. I just, I'm worried about the offense. The defense should be more than fine. And I'm just wondering if, this thing was built to surround Luka with the type of players that Luka's game feeds off of. Is that the same for Kyrie as your QB?
Dude. Absolutely. And I would say even so, like, Luka's better than Kyrie. Like, you and I agree on that, right? I don't mean that as a shot at Kyrie.
No.
But Kyrie is a little more dynamic with his attacks because of his athletic ability and handle and all those things. Luka's
it's not a body bully attack, but it's speed and quickness.
Right.
Explosive.
And Luka, like, is playing the leverage game and trying to manipulate defenses in a different way. So I think they have to play differently, but I also think that what people don't realize is Anthony Davis he's not going to create for himself, but Dirk didn't create for himself. Like, you got Dirk in ISOs, and he could, if he was in triple threat, he could work you. But and please, I'm not saying Anthony Davis is Dirk. I'm not saying that. They're different players. But I'm saying Anthony Davis puts so much pressure on a defense. And the problem with the Lakers, I would contend, is that they didn't have a player like Kyrie. LeBron's badass, but LeBron's 40. He plays way differently physically than he did 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Anthony Davis becomes even more concerning for a defense now that he's on the floor with Kyrie. There's a lot of people, though, that will argue, but that's if he's at the 5, not if he's at the 4 with another 5 out there. And that's where it's like, next year, Derek Lively will shoot threes. You follow me? That's happening next year. That's going to be the focal point of this offseason for him, because I think they will ultimately need that for spacing with this incarnation of the team to optimize it. They'll be okay without it, but to optimize everything that you can do with this lineup, they're going to need Derek Lively to start taking and making threes. I don't think it's in Gafford's game, so I'm not even going to ask him to do that.
Oh, dude, I can't believe we're here. I truly can't believe we're here. I'm thinking about the stages of grief.
Yeah.
I'm like, grief, anger, denial, all that sorrow. Just like, I'm like, I woke up thinking, man, I hope that was a dream. Part of me was like, did I dream that?
Yeah. I've had that feeling too, Benny.
These are tough times. Yeah, man, I can't even believe it.
Do you would you like to do some heroin?
I'm in denial. I can't believe this happened.
Hold on a second. I want to respond to, because I think this is how people feel, but I don't know if I can put this up. Let me see if I can put this up.
Which one?
The guy who said basketball is dying in DFW just like baseball did. The Rangers won a World Series a year ago. Come on. But hey, man, I get it. It's hard. It's hard because Luka brought us so much joy. That's the thing. That joy has been ripped away from us as fans, and we're hurt. I get it. I absolutely loved watching and will continue to love watching Luka play. I watch the whole league all the time. I watch it all the time, man. And I will watch an ton of Laker games. Hell, I already watched a lot of Laker games as it was. Dude, are you not at least, can you find any joy at all that Luka and JJ Redick are reunited? You like those guys, don't you?
Yeah, I can't. If you're a Laker fan, you're like, what? You're calling us and only us and offering us a 25-year-old global icon to be the ambassador of our brand for the next 10 years? Like, yes. How quick can we do this? Yes. You don't even want all of our first round picks? No problem. Done. It's like, I don't, if you're the Lakers, how do you get this fortunate? How do you get this lucky to have a basketball Jesus left on your front porch? You just open the door. Oh, we got Luka now.
Yeah.
We didn't even have to give up much to get him. I mean, now you gave up AD. I'm not taking away from AD. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you look at the return that, if you say, for a guy who is a 5-time first team All NBA, the other guys who are 25, 26, younger than that are on par with that are who? Shea, Tatum. Is Tatum even older than that? There's just a handful of guys that are at that level and at that age.
Right.
What return would those teams get if they traded those guys? Would they have gotten more than AD and a first-round pick from the Lakers?
Absolutely. And please understand, in no universe do I think that this is the right value for a Luka trade. I don't. But what I'm saying is, this was who they targeted and wanted. They didn't want to just put it out there and let Luka determine where he wanted to go, and then they get whatever that package is, which debatably could have been a better value haul. However, that better value haul would not service their immediate window. People are so caught up in the picks, and I get it. They should have gotten more picks. The picks do not help them in the next 3 years unless those picks were then flipped for another player to add to a 3 to 4 year nucleus. You see what I'm saying? So, yes, absolutely. If it's just we want to get rid of Luka and what's the best bidder, that's a different strategy than we're not sure we want to give Luka the supermax. And I'm basing that off Tim McMahon's reporting, not my insight. I want to make sure everyone understands. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm basing that off what Tim McMahon and Mark Stein have said, and I believe them. No one in the organization ever told me we're not going to give Luka the supermax because he doesn't condition right. I've never been told that. I'm going off the same reporting that the people in the comments are going off of. But you factor that into this conversation. And so the Mavericks did not say, we just want to get rid of Luka Doncic. They said, we want to try to win a championship in the next 3 years, and we think that person right over there on that team is going to help us do that, so we're going to go get that person. That's what this is, like it or not. It's not just let's get rid of Luka and open it up to the highest bidder, because, again, I want to remind everybody, San Antonio and Oklahoma City are a couple years away from being unbeatable. Like 80s Celtics Lakers shit, but the difference is they're in the same conference. So the Mavericks are going, we better get our chip right now. That's what the logic is. Whether you agree with it or not, that is the logic. And that's what this move was about, as determined by Nico Harrison, is the best course of action. And he knows as well as anybody that if it blows up in his face, he will get fired. He knows that.
Man, I would give anything to know how Kyrie and J Kidd really feel.
No
That's
doubt.
what it all comes down to.
No doubt.
If Kyrie and J Kidd are like, yes, we have to do this. It sucks, but we have to do this. Then that would change my whole perspective. If they pulled me in a room and Kyrie was like, man, I love Luka like a brother. He's my guy, but he's not his lifestyle, his conditioning, which is going to lead to more injuries as he gets older. It's It's holding us back. And I love him like you do. I love him. I know him even better than you do. I'm saying that's my brother, but this move helps us be more competitive. I would be like, oh.
Right.
But if Kai feels like I do, where I'm all in my emotions, being irrational as fuck, and I'm just like devastated, then Kai goes and demands a trade right now at this trade deadline.
Yeah.
Get me out of here. Or
Right.
he doesn't stay here or in
Right.
the offseason. Or he's like, I'm gone. I can't believe you traded this icon. Like the way that the Mavs players react to this, these guys who have been around, to me, that speaks volumes. And this is not if that's the situation that, again, you look at Luka's body when he got here, you look at how he looked getting off that plane last night. It's different now, and if that's concerning for them, and there's continual injuries and they think they tie it back to that. And, Nico's background is interesting in this because he had, an amazing relationship with Kobe. He's worked closely with Jordan. And so he got to see savage, cold-blooded killers and how they act. Mm-hmm. And he's like, so maybe he's saying, hey, Luka's amazing, but I don't see that same energy. I don't see a guy who's dedicating his entire life, everything he does, stewing over dominating and taking care of his body that way. And maybe for him, that part just didn't compute. And he's like, what, if you're going to get $350 million, you got to be that. We could debate that all day long on whether, I watched the way that Luka just ran through the Western Conference on one leg. And I'm like, I think I'm okay with his conditioning. He's got more ace. Right. He's got more ace bandages on his body than I've ever seen on a point guard, and he's still carrying. So
I'm with you, dude. I would not have traded Luka. I would have said, okay, I think as he gets older, he'll see the light. Because the other thing that happens is, and I stumbled upon this yesterday because I saw a short clip. Remember when Brian Windhorst torched Luka during the finals and did the whole that tunnel right there?
Yes.
So Windhorst was on with Tim McMahon and Tim Bontemps yesterday, and he said, when I did that, I went and I stood by the Mavericks lot, and I saw him personally. I saw him back there, and he made himself available, like Galloway used to tell me and you to do. He went and he made himself available. According to Windhorst, not one person in the Mavericks organization defended Luka to him. Now, look, that's just one guy, and he may be full of S, okay? But that's according to Windhorst. But I think there's a difference, like, you're not going to trade your kids, right, Ben?
It would have to be a really, really no. Okay, I probably wouldn't.
Okay, no. Let me say that differently. You're not going to trade Max,
right? Yeah, I'm not going to trade my franchise kid.
But Max is going to let you down from time to time,
right?
My kids let me down, and I probably let them down a lot too. That's a two-way street, and no matter what, I'm riding with them, and I love them, and I'm going to expect them to stumble, and I'm going to expect them to grow. I feel like my assessment of this is the Mavericks made the mistake of not allowing Luka more room to grow. And the reason that they made that mistake is because there was a $350 million commitment that was getting ready to happen. And so they made the assessment, we want to go in a different direction. Oh, man, I'm going to trade. I've seen Strip Mall Steve's kids. They're dope.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Together an offer.
I might put together a deal.
And, maybe I could trade my dog Maggie, who's on her last legs, for one of Steve's kids that's 25.
So, dude, you aren't certain that they make another deal?
I think they're open to deals. Jesus Christ, they just traded Luka Doncic. This team is open to deals. But I don't have any insider thoughts on to what that might be. And again, it takes two to tango. So the right kind of deal for what they need may not be out there. I don't know. But I know you believe this. I believe this too. What the Mavericks have done with this deal is they have unleashed all the things inside Luka that they were hoping they could have unleashed internally with just discussions and conversations. Because, dude, the Luka that the pettiness with which Luka plays without real, real adversity or real villains, the way that he creates villains like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant do, the guys that you referenced, he has a real villain now. That villain. Oh, we're now joined by Ben Slightly. That villain is Nico Harrison. Luka Doncic has a villain, and that villain is Nico Harrison. And Nico Harrison just challenged. He didn't say it. He didn't say it out loud. It's just through his actions. I'm sure you saw what Luka's dad said. They feel betrayed, and they feel betrayed by Nico. So again, we're about to get John Wick Luka unleashed upon the NBA. And I can say that telling you confidently, the only scene I've ever seen from a John Wick movie is when he punched my favorite basketball player that was here.
Oh yeah, it was Boban.
Thank you. God, I'm old. He punched Boban through a book or whatever. That's the only scene from John Wick I've ever seen, but I know that a dog got killed and then he went and murdered everybody.
Yeah, you can't kill a guy's dog.
No.
He's going through the world with vengeance flowing through his veins.
We killed Luka's dog.
I'm heartbroken, man. I really am. I mean, I do agree with some of the comments that this helps to be able to talk it through.
Come do it in person Thursday night, man. We're gonna really get deep into this. And man, I'm serious. There's a lot of times, and Ben, has seen this, and I've had to go apologize on Twitter because I was a dick to fans. I'm sorry. Like, it's the way I'm wired is I try to be rational about this as best as I can, and that's always going to offend people that are really leaning into their heart. But man, I encourage you to come tell me to fuck off on Thursday, and I'll be okay with it, because this has been far and away ever since January of 2009, when I got to put a Mavericks headset on for the very first time. This is far and away the hardest thing I've ever had to deal with, ever, by a million miles. I'm telling you, it's not even close. And so if you want to tell me to fuck myself, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. You're right. This has been really, really hard, man.
Man, I want you to address this too, because it's all over the comments. People are like, "Oh, it's Skin. You're just towing the company line. You're just saying, people. I'm sure you get that all the time. I do want to say this about you. You do such a great job of not being that. Like I love how you speak your mind and say it like it is. Because sometimes, like the way I feel is all emotion. And thank God that you're bringing something that's not just irrational emotion to this discussion, because people just want you to light it all on fire. But what happened. Let's look at it. Let's consider everything. Let's dissect it. Let's talk about it. And people forget that the reason you even began to work for the Mavericks is because you were the only one in town that would stand up to Cuban to his face.
Cuban tried to get me and you fired. Yeah. That's how me and you really got to know Cuban. He tried to remember what Jerry Jones said about Sean and RJ? Cuban tried to do that. All right. And then later, Cuban, 7 years later, added me to the broadcast. Cuban's been incredibly good to me. Also, here's an irony of Cuban being cut out of the decision-making. There's no way if Cuban was the owner that this would have happened. I'm not saying that as a shot to Patrick Dumont. I'm saying the thing has changed. Cuban ran it with his heart, right? And you too, but me personally, I got a lot of benefit of Cuban running it with his heart.
Yeah.
I've said this a bunch during this live stream, and I'm agreeing with you. I personally would not have traded Luka Doncic, and I wouldn't have even put him out. Okay, highest bidder, we're trading Luka. I personally would not have done that. I'm also not in training rooms. I'm not in practices. I've seen a few practices, but a minuscule amount. I'm not in the room with Nico and his staff as they talk about things. So one of the things is when you and I were first doing the Mavs post game, and you and I were just saying what we wanted to say and just riffing, and we thought we were right all the time on everything we said. And then I got added to the broadcast, and man, it was a intense awakening because I was like, holy shit, there is so much that I don't know. Man, I thought I knew so much. I don't know shit. And I know basketball, right? And I felt like I had a good understanding of how the salary cap works. But there's so many, like, and the best example I can give you, we've talked about this recently, is when Caron Butler went down with that knee injury in Milwaukee. And my first response was, all right, trade his contract right now. I wrote articles about it on ESPN Dallas. Here's how we're going to trade Caron Butler's contract. And what I later found out by everyone in the organization is, man, we probably wouldn't have won that championship if we had traded Caron, because it would have gutted the team. It would have torn the locker room apart. Very similar to the experiences talking to Wash about Michael Young. And, it's like, I get it. We're fans. We're not in those locker rooms.
Right.
We don't know. We're not privy to a lot of stuff.
That deal, that thing you referenced, I was so high on Jerkson Profar. He's the number one prospect in all of baseball. And Michael Young, the leader of the team, slumping. And Michael Young, now a very good friend of ours and business partner of ours, an investor in Rollertown.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, you got to start Profar. And I was having an off-the-record conversation with Ron Washington at the ESPN offices. And I was like, comfortable enough to say, dude, why don't you start Profar over Michael Young? And he goes, you go tell Michael Young he's not lineup. And I was so naive and uninformed to have that opinion, but I was just a sports fan reading the sports page, looking at prospect rankings, looking at a guy in a slump. But you come to learn that so many other tangible things matter. And the reality is, Michael Young was the leader of that team and carried that team, and no slump would ever pull him out because, even in his last year, I think he hit 300 for the Dodgers. But the character and integrity, the leadership, all of that is like, I was just uninformed and naive. And now it's something I can joke with our friend Michael Young about me being a total fucking dumbass.
And he's such a good dude. He jokes with you about it because he's such a good dude, which is the reason all those guys loved him. He was great and a great dude, and he mattered.
Of course. He's one of one. Yeah. And now, like, you get to know Michael Young, you're like, man, even if you had a plumbing company or a donut shop, whatever you had, if you add him, you're going to be a better company, because just having him sprinkle Michael Young dust on whatever it is makes everything better. He's just that fucking guy.
Yeah.
But I was naive and I didn't know. And I granted, in this situation, I couldn't be further outside. Yeah. And I haven't been to the AAC, in a locker room probably since COVID. We used to be there all the time. For me personally, I'm really in reading, consuming everything I can, but I'm not talking to, like when we were covering the Cowboys at the Fan, and I'm talking to the quarterback, and I'm talking to, people in the front office and all these different players and stuff. I'm not that. I'm really just a huge, passionate Mavs fan who talks to people who are connected, but I'm not connected. And so this comes down to, if the people that are closest to Luka, that play and compete with him and live with him and travel with him and sit in a locker room with him, if they believe that, yes, this sucked, but it had to be done, that changes my perspective. And I don't know the answer to that. But
we won't get the answer to that.
Right.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, Ben. And again, I want to reiterate, I ain't in charge of shit. I wouldn't have traded Luka Doncic. I think he's so special, I would not have traded him. The trade has happened, and now I have this emotional side of me that feels the way it feels, but also the way I'm wired, I'm a pretty analytical person. Doesn't mean I'm right. It just means I try my best to analyze and look at all the angles. And I think, I'm sorry to all of you that feel this way, I think if healthy, this is a badass basketball team, and I think that it can put it together and win a championship in the next year and a half. I do believe that. Okay. I'm not just, being a fan here. I see a path and I see how it works. I think it's difficult. I don't think they're the best team. And look, I know a lot of people go, Charles Barkley doesn't know basketball anymore. Charles Barkley said on NBA TV last night with Greg Anthony that if they're healthy, the Mavericks are the second best team in the Western Conference right now with this lineup. They may do something else. They may not. I am invested in the Dallas Mavericks. Okay. Now, I'm not just even talking about games. I will always be a fan of the Mavericks. I've got 4 decades in on this thing, man. And I believe that they can put it together and win. I don't think they're the favorites or anything like that, but I can see why they did what they did for the immediate now. Let's see if it all comes together or not. But again, I personally would have never traded Luka Doncic unless I don't even know what package I could come up with. Do I get Shea and a first-round pick? I don't know. Would Sam Presti trade Shea for Luka? I doubt it. Like, this is complicated and all this stuff. And then there's our emotion in the middle of all of it. Aside from all that emotion and how much and it's not just Luka I love. Like, I love the people around him. Like, Ben and I are personally connected to Luka's people. They matter to us. This is very hard for us. However, the Mavericks are playing a game tomorrow, and they're going to play a game Thursday, and I'm going to call a game on Saturday unless I get fired today. I don't know. That could happen. But my point is, if I look at it from a basketball standpoint, they are very much in the mix. And I want them to get healthy. And if you look at what they did at the trade deadline last year, boy, they sure did put that together real quick. Can Kid do it again? Kyrie has been through a lot, and I believe in Kyrie. And I'm not going to root against the Mavericks because, one, I'm rooting for Kyrie. I love Kyrie. I've gotten to love the guy. I fucking love Derek Lively II. Love him. Like, I'm pulling for this team. I love a lot of the guys on the team. I'm hurt that Luka's gone, but I don't now hate all his friends. Man, getting PJ Washington Jr. here and getting to know him, a guy who's from here. Love that guy. Do you know how likable Daniel Gafford is? Do you know how many good people are on this staff that I'm pulling for? So, yeah, it sucks. Fucking sucks, man. But the team plays tomorrow. And guys that I love are going to take the court. And I'm down with them. Mm-hmm. And I also think from a basketball standpoint, it's a badass team that can still win a championship, despite the fact that, yes, I'm hurt that my guy's not here anymore. That's the reality of how hard this is.
So I'm seeing a lot of comments. I mean, just us doing this and interacting with a bunch of Mavs fans, somewhere along the way, some of you may follow us on social media but have lost track of our show. We do a show from 3 to 6 on 97.1 The Eagle. KT is on that show. Christina's on that show. We'll be doing that show today. We'll talk about this. We also do these Super Soakers. We're going to do these a lot more. We started a media company called Iron Balls, and we're about to grow that into a monster. We're super excited about that as well. And yes, we opened a brewery called Rollertown Beer Works in Salina, and we're building a big global world headquarters in Frisco. Should open in October. But and we have a beer that honors the Big German. It's called the Big German. What's the tagline?
Minimal hops with a smooth finish.
Because he can't jump, and he's the GOAT. So anyways, on Thursday night at Rollertown in Salina, we're going to do this, what we just did, but we're not, we're just going to have a therapy session where let's all talk it out. You're invited.
We'll do it with you. We'll do it with you.
Do it with
you will tell us what you think to our faces.
Yes. And so we'll be at Rollertown on Thursday night to watch the Mavs play the Celtics. We bought this 98-inch TV that we're going to give away on Super Bowl Sunday because we're going to watch the Super Bowl at Rollertown too. And so our buddy Larry Polsky is going to take this 98-inch TV out of the box, set it up at Rollertown. We're going to watch the Mavs game on Thursday and just talk Mavs all night long with you so you can come join us. Then we're going to watch the Super Bowl at Rollertown on Sunday, and at the end of the Super Bowl, we're going to give that 98-inch TV away to somebody who's there, and we'll have it delivered to your house. Now, you got to live here. Sorry if you don't live in DFW. We can't get a 98-inch TV to you. But if you live here, the winner will have to live here. We'll get that TV to you. Larry will put it back in the box, and we'll get it delivered to your house. So if you want to keep talking Mavs with us, you could do it 3 to 6 on the Eagle. You could come join us at Rollertown on Thursday night. And if you want to watch the Super Bowl with us, you can come do that on Sunday at Rollertown.
Man, one more thing, too. I've seen him pop up a couple times. Shout out to Christian Knight. We loved your dad.
Yes, Aaron Knight.
Yep.
We got his picture up at Rollertown, man.
Wonderful human.
Wonderful human, and that guy could sing too, man.
He was a karaoke secret weapon like no other.
Yes.
And he was very much loved in the DFW music scene.
Yes.
I know a lot of people in the music scene that loved Aaron Knight.
Thank you to everyone who participated. Thank you for all the comments. Thanks for following us on social media. Thank you for supporting us in our radio adventure. we started doing that Mavs post-game show. Was it 01 or 02?
I think that was the 02. That was the year after the Nick Van Exel trade. So what is that, 02, 03, I believe?
Yeah. It was it was the first year that Calvin Booth hit that shot in Utah, right?
I think there was a couple years after that. But you, because of your
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the year after that was when we were able to go. That year we went to San Antonio because you were working for K-Star.
Yeah. Rick
You
Mills.
got us to San Antonio for the next round.
The great Rick Mills made that happen.
Yeah.
Anyways, you can listen to our show 3 to 6 on the Eagle. If you don't like hearing the music in between us talking, you can listen to it on the iHeart. You can listen every single thing we do on iHeart is podcasted on the iHeart app. You can see it there. But man, I hope you enjoyed this, fair and balanced discussion we tried to have. We're obviously both emotional about it as well, and just trying to, as the dust settles, figure out what's next. But this has been helpful to have this conversation. I know for me personally, I'm going to go cry now, but
I almost cried talking about Derek Lively II.
Yeah, right? It's
like,
crazy.
dude, I care. We care.
Yeah.
We care. And, man, we care about Lucas so much.
Yeah.
Like, we love him so much.
Yeah.
He was a baby when he got here, man. Hard. This is hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I know it's hard on everybody else too. So, you ready to get out of here?
Yeah, I need to take a piss.
This has been another Iron Balls production.
Iron Balls!
This has been another Iron Balls production.
Iron Balls!